Greetings, fellow explorers. This is Tony with Fount Systems Network, and we are here in pursuit of low-carbon innovations for seawater desalination. It's been a really productive 4 months here. I've uncovered a lot of really interesting stuff that I'm looking forward to sharing with you further. But I have to say, I've been really hung up for the last few weeks, and I don't feel like I can responsibly move forward with our pursuit until we take some time to recognize that Black Lives Matter and to spend some time contemplating the meaning of that declaration. First off, there are a couple really obnoxious retorts out there. Retorts to the declaration that Black Lives Matter, and I'm not going to repeat them here, but since a lot of people can't or won't seem to understand what's obvious in the declaration, let's make the reason for its existence clear. Black Lives Matter needs to be declared since too many local communities in the United States conduct themselves as if Black lives don't matter. By honestly considering decades of evidence supporting institutional and cultural racism in the United States, you don't have to be on the receiving end of that racism to conclude that in too many places, Black lives just don't seem to matter. That's the point of the declaration that Black Lives Matter, that America needs to make profound improvements in policing, in public services, education, and to create an environment supportive of the process of humanization. And so this is where I've been hung up on this humanization issue. My friend, the artist Venus Jones, she called me out a few weeks ago. Well, I mean, not me directly, but she said something that reminded me of something else that a writer named Paolo Freire wrote decades ago. And me being me, I went digging, and then I couldn't find her observation again. And I went and I revisited Freire's work, and I couldn't find what I thought I read there many years ago. So the following words here are mine, and it's taken me a little time to think about what I wanted to say about humanization as it relates to Black Lives Matter. So I hope you'll try and answer these questions for yourself. How would it make you feel if you learned that a born dancer didn't ever get to be the dancer she was born to be? What would you say to the person who tells you, confides in you at the end of their life that they always wanted to build a home for themselves, that they wanted to be a carpenter, but they never even had a chance in their lives to pick up a chisel? Or what would you say to the kid who, upon experiencing a blackout for the first time, sees the Milky Way revealed in the sky for the first time and is inspired to become an astronomer who wants to explore the outer reaches of human awareness? That when they return to school on Monday, they're told that there are no resources for that and it's not on the standardized test. I'm using these hopefully relatable stories as examples of the ever unfolding process of humanization forestalled. How many Black Americans have had their lives proscribed and delimited as if their lives don't matter? Surely policy outcomes like school district budget shortfalls, inadequate access to health care, and compromised growth from malnutrition can contribute to bringing these sad scenarios about. But at this moment, it needs to be clearly said that violent forms of oppression, and sometimes just the credible threat of violence, most assuredly impede human beings from fully becoming themselves. And this violent oppression in the US too often occurs in the guise of routine community policing. I don't see any other way to describe the disproportionate use of force on Black Americans at the hands of police officers. And this happens alongside traumas deliberately inflicted by their fellow Americans. This has been going on for decades now, and it's got to stop. Black Americans pay taxes for community policing and don't reliably have the rule of law to protect them, since the institution that they fund is supposed to protect them also poses a threat. Indeed, when Amy Cooper confronted Christian Cooper in Central Park just a few weeks ago, she picked up her cell phone and threatened to call the police. Do you think she was suggesting third-party mediation? Her actions revealed the credible threat of deadly force that she had available at her disposal. This isn't a one-off thing. It's emblematic of encounters that must occur hundreds, if not thousands of times a year in communities around the United States. I'm just glad that unfortunate encounter hasn't prevented Mr. Cooper from resuming his tranquil and yes, humanizing pursuit of birdwatching. When I contemplate the America we now have, I can't help but get a sense of loss and a sense of lost opportunity. Hundreds of years of anti-Black racism have certainly prevented the emergence of innovative social and technological advances that could have been created by Black Americans and could have benefited all of humanity. Because parts of American society have held back and neglected an uncountable number of brilliant Black innovators in the early stages of their humanization, it is a certainty that our society has been compromised as a result. Since this is the Fount Systems Network and we're here in pursuit of low-carbon innovations, I'm going to go as far as to say that anti-Black racism in the United States is a contributing factor to the climate emergency that the world is trying to respond to now. This is because voters with anti-Black attitudes have enjoyed representation through our partisan politics for over 40 years now, the period of time when climate change started becoming a concern. They've provided demographic weight and financial support to party and communications infrastructure that have either been strongly opposed to or maintained a very light touch on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. At a minimum, it's easy enough to imagine how much more space we would have for policy action on reducing greenhouse gas emissions if we didn't devote so much resources to a war on drugs, for example, or this basic human rights issue. And this U.S. partisanship problem also has global implications. The relative lack of U.S. leadership on the climate change issue over the last 40 years has set a normative standard that the rest of the world has, to some degree, been content to position themselves alongside. So you could say that America's original sin has indirectly helped create negative repercussions that the rest of the world will also have to try to cope with for decades to come. I'm going to finish up this presentation like I usually do. There's a lot more that can be said on this subject, and fortunately there are a lot more eloquent voices than mine out there saying them. I'll provide a few links in the description below. I'm going to close by affirming here that yes, indeed, Black lives matter, and that supporting the humanization of one another benefits us all. That's it, everyone. As always, remember, keep exploring, keep growing. I'll see you next time.